All right. Shalom, everybody. Shalom and welcome. Yishai Fleisher broadcasting live from Judea. What an honor and a pleasure it is to be with you. And I'm already being asked, were we supposed to have started already, right? Yeah, we started. This is it. We're starting. We're here. We're here alive and well. And in fact, this is the show for you if you're out there nervous about Israel, feeling like we're all alone, lots of anti-Semitism out there. Well, this is the okay? This is the anti-Semitism. This is the show that you're going to get live from Judea to feel a little bit stronger and a little bit better and a little bit more of a context and a big picture of the return of the Jewish people to the land of Israel, which is indeed happening. It's happening, and it's happening big. It's happening so big that all the bad guys want to stop it, and they're pulling out all the stops. I respect bad guys. They're doing it. They're doing their thing. They're teaching tons of hate out there. We're not going to succumb to it. This is too big of a project, baby. We're coming home. We are coming home. And I've been just over Shabbat. I was reading Israeli history, and then Saturday night washing dishes, listening to a podcast. It was rough. It was rough not so long ago. It was so rough. But Hashem helped us persevere. Jewish tenacity, stiff-neckedness, lots of mazel, lots of blessings. Okay, lots of hard-headedness, stiff-neckedness, and we survived. And so, don't give up. Don't get depressed. That's our job, especially now during these 3 weeks, which is, the period where you could get depressed because it's a depressing time. I was also reading a little bit of Torah about how Jeremiah was, thrown into the pit by Tzidkiyahu during the first temple, the end of the first temple period, and how harsh the Jews were to this great prophet Jeremiah. There's tons of bad stuff. And yet, after the first temple was destroyed, it was rebuilt. And after the second temple is destroyed, it will be rebuilt. And we are living in a time of that rebuilding. We are living in a time of rebirth, reconnection to this land, and the challenges that go along with that. If you want to ride with the Jewish people, if you want to surf this story, then get ready for a bumpy ride. It's not like a smooth ride. It's not a fantasy book. It's God's vision. It's coming true, but it's got bumps. That's what the Bible's all about. It's about bumps, and it's about getting closer to God and doing his will and building that temple, and about the bumps that go along with that. And in order to surmount those bumps, you need tenacity, stick-to-itness. You got to stick to it. You got to know that the bumps and the challenges, that's part of God's way of doing things. And you got to really stick to it. And you got to love the story of Israel, even in the hard times. In fact, right now may be considered a kind of hard time. This is when people are measured. This is when men and women are measured, whether they stood with Israel in this hard time, when maybe Israel didn't seem as cool at the water cooler, but you were willing to say, hey, I stand with Israel. I stand with God. I stand with that vision. I'm not going to let myself be disappointed. Even when Israel doesn't act perfectly, even when Israel acts stupidly, I still know this is a great time. And let me just give you one simple thought, okay? I was reading one of my favorite books, The Prime Ministers, and there was, in 1967, 2.5 million Jews in the land of Israel. Now there are 7 million Jews. That statistic by itself is the most important one. We're coming home. The ingathering is happening. We're going to talk today all about the Druze and the Jews and the Christians and the Gazans. We're going to talk about all that. But first, we got to lay out a vision. And so today we're going to start our show today with a discussion of a solution, not the two-state so-called solution delusion, not giving away our land, not shrinking, not walking away, and certainly not the destruction of Israel, but rather sovereignty. Tomorrow, there's going to be a big conference at the Knesset that's headed up by the Likud. It's a special conference with ministers. The Speaker of the House, members of the Knesset, Likud members, will take place. This will take place tomorrow, Monday, at the Knesset, calling to advance the issue of sovereignty in Judea, Samaria, and the Jordan Valley. Tzvi Sukkot, Knesset member from Religious Zionism, will hold a committee meeting at the Knesset to discuss preparing the ground for sovereignty. Two amazing women who are the heads of the sovereignty movement say the time has come to move from words to actions to correct the historical injustice. It's time for sovereignty. Those two women are Yehudit Katzover and Nadia Matar, co-founders of both Women in Green, which is like a women's movement of Jewish strength and Jewish rights in Judea and Samaria, and more focused these days on the sovereignty movement, bringing that word into consciousness. Nadia Matar joins us. Nadia, shalom and welcome to the show.
Shalom, shalom to you and to all your listeners, viewers.
Nadia, that's right. That's right, Nadia. We moved away from listeners. We're into viewers now. That's right.
We moved away from being called Women in Green, and now we're called the Sovereignty Movement.
There you go. Very good. Okay. Sovereignty. Give me a sense of the political environment that you see right now vis-a-vis the sovereignty idea. On the one hand, we have a very right-wing government, lots of excellent nationalist Knesset members. At the same time, not one red sign of the Oslo process, of the two-state solution, of the PA-controlled areas in our land, not one has been removed yet. So, not only that, but this nationalist government has been the victim of the October 7th massacre, but also the October 7th opportunity. So I want to ask you first for a sense of the geopolitical. Oh, and there's, of course, the Trump phenomenon. Is it helpful? Is it not helpful? So I wanted to ask you to, you're talking about sovereignty. What's the chances of this stuff happening right now? What's the geopolitical and local politics atmosphere in favor or disfavor of sovereignty?
We have somebody who said before, if you will it and you work hard, it can happen with God's help. So first of all, we have to really make sure to make our politicians hear that that we want it. Yehudit Katzover, who I have the privilege of being her co-chair, and her student, who's the mastermind behind this whole idea of sovereignty. And I'll give a little background about that to understand what exactly it means, because not everybody understands how crucial it is to safeguard the future of the Jewish people and the land of Israel, state of Israel as the state of the Jewish people. She always says it, politicians who are the ones who in the end will have to bring sovereignty, because in the end, the application of sovereignty is a 2-second vote in the Knesset or in the government. That's all we're talking about. But all that needs to be done for that is for the Prime Minister to agree to let the vote happen. And in order for that to happen, the politicians have to vote, and there has to be a majority of politicians voting in favor of it. And that's only going to happen when they feel that it's burning by the people, when they understand that the people really want this. And tomorrow is another step yet in our many years campaign for the application of Israeli sovereignty. But tomorrow it's reaching the Knesset, and it's organized by Likud Knesset members, who I of course have to mention, whether it's Dan Iluz and Keti Shitrit, and let me make sure not to forget anyone, Ariel Kellner, Avichai Boaron, and one more here, and Moshe Pasal. They're the ones behind tomorrow's big conference, and it's one more step to tell the Prime Minister, get the courage to promote the sovereignty. And I want to explain something. Israel is wonderful at winning wars, military victories. We've gotten so many amazing military victories. You can hear me, right? Is my microphone working?
Excellent. Okay. Excellent. Great.
But the problem is that after the military victory, you have to also have a diplomatic victory. You cannot let this victory go away. And today we are paying the price, on October 7th, we are paying the price of the 6-day war. When Israel was founded in 1948, mini Israel, without Judea, Samaria, Gaza, half of Jerusalem, etc. All the Arab states wanted to attack us, attacked us, and we won an incredible, miraculous, God-given military victory. And the government at the time didn't know what to do with this victory. And instead of immediately declaring, saying, we were attacked. According to international law, we had the right to defend ourselves. And according to international law, we have the right to be in all those places, Judea, Samaria, because it's ours. It's the land of Israel, according to the Bible, according to San Remo, according to everything. And therefore, we, the government of Israel of 1967, we will include all those areas that we return to as part, and we will apply Israeli law, i.e. Israeli sovereignty over those areas. And from now on, Israel will have different borders, and all those areas that we just returned to at the 6-Day War will be part of Israel, no different between the areas of Judea and Samaria and Rehovot, Petach Tikva, Beersheba. They didn't do that. A bunch of heroes sprung up, Rabbi Levinger, Rabbi Hanan Porat, and organized a group of amazing heroes who and pioneers who said, well, sometimes the government doesn't know what to do. Well, maybe it's our job to do what we should try. And they had this mass movement of the mitnachalim, the settler movement. In English, in Hebrew, the word is amazing. I love the word mitnachalim. In English, it was, of course, badly translated as settlers, but it's really the inheritors of the land of Israel. They promoted and organized, and Judith Katzover is one of them, and the famous 13 women of Bet Hadassah, and all those amazing people, the families, Ha'etzny and Waldman, and there are too many, Baruch Hashem, Felix family and Katzover, etc. Thanks to them today, there is now more than 500,000 Jews in Judea and Samaria, with Jerusalem almost 1 million. But why is it still on the discussion table? Because the status of the area is still the same as in 1967. Who does this area belong to? And when you don't apply sovereignty, so after I met Judith Katzover 20 years ago in Gush Katif, and we came back to Judea and Samaria, heartbroken by having lost temporarily the Gaza Strip, because we all know we're going back to the Gaza Strip and we're going to make it Jewish again. But until then, we were heartbroken. We started seeing how the Arabs started taking over areas of Judea and Samaria. We're starting fighting local battles. Yishai, you were part of it too. And at one point, Judith Katzover said in 2011, we're not going to win this battle if we're going to continue to only focus on settlement. We settle here, we settle there, wonderful. But when you think about it, basically, with all the amazing settler movement that we had and the hundreds of communities and outposts, etc., we still have not taken over more than between 3 and 7% of the land. People don't know that. And if we want Judea and Samaria to stay in our hands, then we need to say who it belongs to, that it belongs to Israel by applying Israel's sovereignty. In Gush Katif, they destroyed Gush Katif within 6 days, because there was no Israeli sovereignty. It was under military rule. Since 1967, Judea Samaria is not under Israeli law, but under military rule. And Judith Katzover said in 2011, we have to protect the settlement enterprise by applying sovereignty, by applying Israeli rule. And since then, we've been active in promoting that, because you have to understand, if you don't apply sovereignty, 2 things happen. Number one, if you what does Israel say when it doesn't apply sovereignty? It allows its people to live there, settlers, Kiryat Arba, Gush Etzion, Ariel, yes. But it doesn't apply sovereignty. What does it basically say to the world? I'm not sure that it's going to stay mine forever. Somebody compared it very well to a rented house. You rent an apartment. You rent an apartment, so you don't know if you're going to change the light bulb, because you don't know if you're going to stay. When you don't apply sovereignty, you're basically saying, I'm not sure it's mine. That's number one. And number two, even worse, or both things are terrible. Number two is, if you basically say, I'm not sure it's mine, it's not going to stay like that. Somebody else is going to say, wait, it's mine forever. And we, by not applying sovereignty, we enabled the lie of the so-called Palestinian people who have a so-called claim to this land to flourish, because they say, hey, it's ours. That is the terrible thing, and I have to quote Melanie Phillips, who I saw today. You have to see, and she's amazing. She says why the West fell for the Palestinian lie, and she do you allow me to quote her?
Sure.
She has a podcast called "Why the West Fell for the Palestinian Lie." The problem is not identified correctly. It's not a problem over land. It's a problem over the division of land, not a problem over the division of land. The Palestinian cause is one of exterminating the state of Israel and removing Israel as a Jewish homeland altogether. Not only is Palestinianism aimed at destroying Israel and removing the Jewish homeland. It's also based on the big lie, which rewrites the Jews out of their own history in the land. It pretends that the indigenous people of the land were the Muslims and that the Jews are interlopers, when the reverse is true. The indigenous people of the land are the Jews. The whole thing is based on a lie. Palestinianism is rubbish. There's no such thing as a Palestinian people, etc. But why? And she then claims, she claims that Israel is very much at fault for allowing this lie to spread, because Israel doesn't say it's ours. And how do you say it's ours? By applying sovereignty. And the last thing I want to say, if you don't apply sovereignty, number one, you basically say you're not sure it's yours. Number two, you allow the Palestinian lie to flourish and the world believes you that, and you enable people maybe with good intentions, but with very bad plans, to come in the picture and suggest their own plan. How did Oslo come about in 1993? There was no sovereignty. A group of people, unfortunately, on the left, maybe with good intentions, one day will be discussed, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt that they had good intentions. Shimon Peres, Yossi Beilin, they saw that there's Jews, there's Arabs here, the status is not decided upon. Let's bring in this mass murderer Yasser Arafat, who promised to us that he will be a nice guy, give him weapons, parts of our homeland. And the entire Oslo tragedy and crime and thousands of Jews who were murdered because of this Oslo, which led to the 7th of October, of course, just recently in Gaza. All this happened because there was no sovereignty. And the time has come, once and for all, to end the Six-Day War. I don't know how you say in English, la'achia, to finally say that to decide to finish off the job and say the entire land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel. There is never going to be a Palestinian state here. And we're going to apply sovereignty over all of Judea, Samaria, the Jordan Valley, and Gaza. And now with a amicable Trump administration and with a right-wing government, if we don't do it now, when is it going to be?
So I wanted to ask, this is at the very end here. You started talking about this right-wing government and this Trump administration, and yet after October 7th, it was never articulated what was going to happen to Gaza. Gaza's an easy one. We used to control it. We need to control it. Nobody else can control it. And yet, Prime Minister Netanyahu has fought a valiant war, but has never made a strategic declaration about how we're going to deal with this piece of land. In fact, there's been floated all kinds of other people that would control this land: Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Trump, the UN, all this stuff, all these classic ideas that somebody else will take responsibility. One of the conclusions that I came to is that Israel, our beloved Israel, we have in Israel a little bit of a ghetto consciousness. We don't want to rule other people. We want to stay small. We don't want to be a power. We don't want to be a regional power, certainly not a superpower. We just want to be a small Tel Aviv-based ghetto. Sometimes we got to mow the lawn, but we don't want to hold on, and we certainly don't want to hold on to other people. That is a consciousness that's out there in the streets of Israel. How do you fight that consciousness of wanting to be small? Like so many people, they're afraid of ruling this land. They're afraid of governing other people. And there's a psychological blockage to sovereignty. How do you deal with that?
Education. One of the things we came and understood a few years ago already is that, I'm saddened to say that the non-religious school system here in Israel very often has, at the end of 12 years of studies, Hebrew-speaking non-Jews who barely know what it is to be Jewish, and who barely know the right, our right to this land, and it's terrible. That's why in our sovereignty movement a few years ago, we founded the Sovereignty Youth Movement, when we understood that we need to educate and prepare leaders who will know the truth and who will know the facts who will learn about the facts and will not afraid to be real Jewish leaders who say the entire land belongs to us.
Wait,
And
wait,
we don't have to wait. We don't
wait.
have to wait for the young generation. We also have now a whole generation of people in the army, the soldiers. Look at the soldiers. They all know what you just said. They don't want to. They don't have a small idea. They want us to be big, and we don't need to rule over another people because we're going to help those people to leave. One
Okay.
of the what?
So you're saying first thing you're saying that the psychological problem will be overcome through education. Okay, but sometimes psychology isn't just education. There's like something in the Israeli psyche where you just sense that they're not like they just want to be small. Like look right now at the Syrians. The Syrians.
They, you say they. I think that if you make a poll today, then the majority of the people of Israel are not like that. They is probably the political leaders. You have to and they when you say they, I think the majority of the Jewish people don't want to be small. The majority of the Jewish people today feel much more connected to their Jewishness. Many more people put tzitzit on tefillin, and this. I was one of the first ones. Judith Katzover once gave me this present of the Eretz Israel, the little golden necklace, which more and more people wear. By the way, my son once told me, Ima, this is only 22% of the land of Israel. Where's the rest? I said, well, at this moment, this is in danger. And Judith and I, our generation will fight for this, then you can continue on later. But anyway, more and more people wear this saying, this is our land. I think that what you're describing is something by the politicians, a fear they have to express what the majority of the Jewish people want. And many people are very frustrated. Why can't this government act more right wing than it does?
Let me give you just two examples. One, President Trump has numerously given a so-called green light to Israel to evacuate Gaza, to help refugees leave the war zone, and he articulated a vision of a beautiful Gaza, right? And anybody that was actually one of my favorite Trump moments because you really got to see that the guy really is a real estate developer and he's got a sense of real estate because he's totally right. I remember during the Gush Katif expulsion that you and colleagues took over a hotel. And how beautiful was that place? How beautiful were those beaches? Like he had a good sense for it, but still Israel has not taken up that mantle of holding on to Gaza in a full way, in a military governance and in a civilian sovereignty has not been done. Another example has happened today and yesterday. There are serious Druze leaders in Syria telling Israel annex this piece of land, or at least help us create a confederation where the Druze would rule the Druze mountain and we'd be confederated with Israel. It's an opportunity. If you want it to be big, you just jump at that. You'd be like, great, here's our allies, here's this land. It's going to be defensive for us. The Hermon is going to be safe. It's good for us. It's good for us to be big. So so politicians are not quite there yet. Maybe tomorrow's conference is going to start remedying that. What do you think?
I hope so. That's why we are behind the organization of this conference with the sovereignty movement, and very happy that the Knesset members have agreed and are doing this. And obviously, it is led by Likud Knesset members, because in the end, the one who has to agree to bring it to a vote in the government or in the Knesset is Prime Minister Netanyahu of the Likud. So he has to feel the pressure from there. And we can't just stay home and say, why is it not happening? We have to go out, whether it's go out physically and demand it, or to write letters, or to be activists for the application of Israeli sovereignty, and not only over Gaza, but also over Judea and Samaria. And we have basically only a few months left till the next elections here in Israel, and who knows what's going to be after that. We have to put everything aside now and push for that, for a complete victory, which includes Israeli sovereignty. The sovereignty is something that the Arabs will finally understand, that they have lost the war. When they understand that they will never be able to anymore have a Palestinian state between the river and the sea. In my opinion, they can have a Palestinian state in France if they want. Not that I believe that there's a Palestinian people, but if they want to play the game and continue with their lie, then France can become it, but not by us. And
Nadia, are you aware about how distant the words and the thoughts that you're articulating are from a huge amount of international consciousness? Like you're saying,
absolutely,
I want to like open that up because you know there's I've been in this business for 25 years, the business
I've
of
been
making.
for 30, over 30.
Right. I have never seen such a wave of anti-Semitism. I'm thankful that we have a Jewish state in general, but I'm specifically now also because if there wasn't in Israel, there would be pogroms all over.
Yishai, Yishai, the anti-Semitism was always there.
Hmm.
The world loves dead Jews. They love Jews in Auschwitz. They can't handle the fact when Jews have a weapon and an army, and that we fight against those who want to annihilate us. And the more we fight, and the more we're strong, and the more we'll apply sovereignty, and the more we'll say that this is our land, the more they'll be anti-Semitics, and they'll make their statement. And it's not going to help them because it will strengthen us. It will open the eyes of those here who thought that we can trust the world. We can't trust them. We have to be strong here because God is on our side, thank God. And we have to not to be afraid to use the word God. Yes, we are here because God gave us this land, and we don't have to be afraid to say so. And God gave us the obligation not only to settle and to build Jewish communities, but to govern the land. There's a Hebrew pasuk, v'horashtem. V'horashtem doesn't mean only to settle, but to govern the land. And we can't give any non-Jews to govern our land. And the stronger we'll be, the more the world will go wild, but the more they'll respect us also. Believe me, they'll respect us much more when we are strong. So I am not surprised by the anti-Semitism. I feel bad for the Jews who live there. They have a home to come back to. Come back home. Come here. We need you here, and you need to be here. There's no future, not in London, not in New York, not in Antwerp, where I come from. I tell every group that I speak to, I like to about soccer. Jews can choose whether they want to play soccer on the field or to be on the side and just say bravo when you're on the side and you are just a supporter. When you live abroad, you're on the side, you're not on the field. Nobody's going to remember any community, not in Antwerp, not in New York, nowhere. Only Jewish history is made here in Israel. But then when I made Aliyah, I also saw that even in Israel, you have to decide to be on the court. You can't just be on the tribunot, as we say. You also have to involve yourself. You have to go to the army. You can't say you can't go to the army. Those who say that they can't go to the army, they also say on the tribunal, like in the galut. And therefore, yes, anti-Semitism is there because we brought the Torah to the world, because we bring morality to the world, and because we are fighting the real fight. And the fight is not about this settlement or that settlement. The fight is about what the Palestinian Authority likes to put on their Palestinian flag, which I forgot to bring a picture because it's in a different place. The main slogan that the Palestinian Authority has is first, on Saturdays we will murder the Jews, and on Sundays we will murder the Christians. We are here in a war that is a global war of Islam against the Judeo-Christian civilization, against the Western world. And the stronger we will be, the more the anti-Semites will be anti-Semitic, but the more those who understand what's going on will be on our side. And we are going to win this war if we stand firm and if we apply sovereignty from the river to the sea.
What about partial sovereignty? Are you willing to take, let's say, just the Jordan Valley at this time? Do you believe in a phased sovereignty, or do you think that it's everything or nothing? Like, how do you want? I mean, I understand what you'd love to see, but would you be willing to take a kind of political a step in the right direction? Is that something that you'd be comfortable with? Some people are not
The,
comfortable. They do.
Absolutely. The sovereignty movement is an ideological movement, and we want to apply sovereignty over everything, and without giving the Arabs any right to any citizenship. We have to make it very clear, and it's not apartheid. Just read the book of David Friedman, and not giving them citizenship is not apartheid. There's 66 countries in the world, Western countries, who have different statuses, etc. And now, especially after October 7th, when we found out that 80% of the Arabs of Judea and Samaria favor the slaughter of the Jews of October 7th, meaning when I see a group of 10 Arabs in Judea and Samaria, I know that 8 of them are willing to butcher me and to put Jewish babies in the oven. I cannot give them not even residency, and therefore sovereignty will come with helping them to leave, and that minority, the minority of Arabs, and there are some, a few, who want to live with us under Israeli sovereignty without citizenship will be welcome. It is complicated to do it all at once. I wish it could be done all at once. The main thing is that it has to be done without connecting it to a Palestinian state. And let me explain. A few years ago, they had the deal of the century. And they told us the deal of the century is fantastic. 30% Israeli sovereignty. You should be the first one to celebrate. Luckily, we learned from Eliakim Ha'etzni of blessed memory to always read the small print. And we read the deal of the century, and it wasn't about sovereignty at all. It was 30% sovereignty and 70% a Palestinian state, with parts of the Negev also being given over to the Arabs. And therefore, we were the first ones to be against that. And we lost a lot of friends. We lost donors because of that, because we stayed ideologically connected. And we stuck to the ideology. All of the land of Israel belongs to the people of Israel, and only Israel can be sovereign here. We cannot have a partial sovereignty if that means that Arabs or any other country, whether it's local Arabs or Saudi Arabia or I don't know what, will receive any way of autonomy or sovereignty. That's why we also have difficulty with Mati Kedar's plan, because we told Mati, you know what I'm talking about. You have the Emirates plan. The Emirates plan is very nice because it's against the Palestinian Authority, but be careful not to create 8 small Palestinian entities instead of one big one, which would also be a tragedy. So to answer your question, we would like it to be on everything. If it's partial, let's say the Jordan Valley only, then it should be labeled as sovereignty over the Jordan Valley first. And this with the full understanding that the rest will also be under Israeli sovereignty and never under any Arab or European or foreign autonomy or control.
Nadia Matar, tomorrow there's a big sovereignty conference at the Knesset. Congratulations for organizing that. It's the Likud-led event, and this government, in its kind of towards the end of its governance, of its reign, of its time in the Knesset, it's still discussing the issues of sovereignty. Let's hope that it moves forward on any level. We'll take any steps forward in the right direction. And I want to thank you.
We have to strengthen all the ministers and Knesset members who are promoting it. Minister Eli Cohen, who said, if I have to choose between peace with Saudi Arabia or sovereignty, I'll choose sovereignty. He'll be one of the speakers. And not to talk about, of course, all the other Knesset members of the other parties, like Minister Smotrich and Oretz Struk, are working very hard, and Itamar Ben-Gvir. And anyway, so may God give strength to our politicians to be strong Jewish leaders, not to be afraid, and to apply Israeli sovereignty, and to bring total victory and bring back all our hostages, and make it clear to any Arab that it's not worth for them to deal with the Jewish people, because we are lions and lionesses.
Nadia Matar, Sovereignty Movement, thank you very much. Congratulations and good luck tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us. Okay. Intense stuff for sure. You can't push back against a lady like that. She's got a big vision. I don't know if I agree with everything that was said. I think that there can be residency for a lot of non-jihadist Arabs, and I do think that we can take steps forward right now that are consensus steps, including sovereignty in the Jordan Valley. Well, you know what? It's time to bring out the big guns to think about what's going on here in the land of Israel. And I was with my friend Yonatan Marcus, and he said to me, why don't you have a little think tank of guys or men and women who understand the situation in Israel? So I said, you know what? You're invited. So I want to invite Yonatan Marcus, who's a major in the army. He's the chief of staff of the Efrat municipality in Judea. He's a strategic advisor to the mayor, chairman of the health committee. Yonatan is a major in the intelligence arm of the IDF, served for over 600 days. Since October 7th, also as an ambulance driver from Magen David Adom, and drove down to Sderot and Reem in the morning of October 7th. So he's done a lot. Yonatan, thank you so much for joining us.
But hey, Yishai, how are you?
Good to see you. But you're not alone, because we also have our good friend we haven't had on for a while, but we need some Knesset insiding. So our Knesset insider, Jeremy Saltan joins us today. He's a political analyst, strategist, Knesset insider, known for his work in the right and national religious sectors of Israeli politics. Over the past 16 years, Saltan has worked as a legislative and political advisor in and around the Knesset, held appointed and elected positions within national municipal Israeli politics, including as an advisor for Prime Minister Bennett. Saltan publishes opinion pieces in the Israeli press, appears on television as an expert on Israeli foreign policy, national security, challenges, and domestic politics. Jeremy, shalom. Okay. I want to tell you guys, wait, Jeremy, I don't think I hear you yet, so you might be over there muted on your side. Let's check that you're not muted on your side. You're not muted on my side. Can you hear me? Can you hear us? Are you heard? Sadly, I don't hear you yet, but I hear you, Yonatan. Right? Give me a 1, 2, 3 there.
Yep. Hey, Jeremy, how's it going?
Yeah,
what about now?
Yeah, you're back. You're on. You're on. Great.
Okay, I'm with you. Excellent.
Gentlemen, first thing is, Nadia Matar spoke about the fact that this Knesset is on its way out, either naturally or unnaturally, meaning to say it might be terminated early. There is already some very serious shakeups in the government right now. The coalition is much smaller because Shas left the coalition. They did not join the opposition. So let's start with you, Jeremy. Just give us a sense. Why did Shas, the Sephardic Party, pull out of this coalition? And how much weaker is our government right now?
Well, technically, they left the government. They did not leave the coalition, unlike UTJ, which chose to leave both. Just to break it down so that people can understand back at home. So the UTJ party is the Haredi ultra-Orthodox party in Knesset. They are made up of two different branches, the Hasidim and the Lithuanian side. Already earlier, about a month ago or so, we had the leader of the Hasidim go ahead and resign his position as the housing minister. And then what we ended up having is the leader of the Lithuanian side resign his position within the Knesset. He's the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. Along with him, his number two, who is a deputy minister, because the Lithuanians don't agree to be a minister within the government. We can talk about that another time. So they ended up leaving, and then the rest of the Hasidim left. So they gave up their positions both as ministers, deputy ministers, and as committee chairmen, as opposed to Shas, who decided to wait a little bit before they did leave. The last Shas minister just actually resigned today, and they left as ministers, but they are maintaining their positions as committee chairmen. So technically, the coalition right now has 60 seats out of 120, so it does not have a majority. But in terms of the government, we're in a position where close to half of the ministries are currently vacant. So that is a very, very big deal in terms of what's happening. In terms of how we got here, of course, the reason that both of the ultra-Orthodox parties left is because of the failure of the Defense and Foreign Affairs Committee Chairman, Yuli Edelstein, to actually put a bill on the table in terms of regulating the recruitment of Haredi Jews into the IDF. And without him being able to go ahead and table that, as well as bring that to a vote, that led to the Haredim living up to their ultimatum that has been going on for months, that if that would not happen, they would go ahead and leave the coalition. Of course, Yuli would say, I had a version that I would have brought, but since the Haredim said no to it, so because of that, I'm not bringing that. And that brings us into the showdown of this last week before the Knesset goes into recess. Veteran listeners of yours know how much I like to talk about the recess. Whoever tries to bring down the government within the recess would need to go through so many hoops that it's practically not possible. And the Knesset will go into recess this coming Sunday, a week from today. So we know that this is something that's not really going to happen. The last chance for the opposition to topple the government will be tomorrow in the no confidence motions. And of course, as you mentioned, the Haredi parties said, we are not joining the opposition. We are not voting for the no confidence motion. So we'll have a roller coaster of a week. I can tell you that we'll get a lot of legislation passed. It'll probably make a lot of good news. A lot of people will be following it, but the government will be able to survive until we return for the next Knesset session, which will start on October 20th.
Okay, so that was a good rundown. Yonatan, aren't we in the middle of a war? Isn't this like not exactly the time to do this kind of thing? Like I would be like, I wouldn't. How do you face up to your constituents when you say that you're willing to bring down a government during a time of war? I mean, and how is it functioning on the municipal level as well? Is it affecting us system wide?
So it's a great question. First of all, hi Jeremy. So happy you're here. Really great guy. You gave a great rundown.
Thank you, likewise.
It's important to really understand that there's the political game, which is kind of like to the public and what the media talks about, and then there's the really day-to-day work that's being done. And as Jeremy said very well, there's really no situation in which this causes a government to topple down. We're not going to elections. It doesn't mean that we're not going to elections immediately in 3 months when we begin the next session, but for the next, in the next week it's not going to happen, and then we go into a hiatus. And when it comes to the day-to-day, when you look in what's happening behind the scenes, that's when you see what's really going on. So, for example, as Jeremy said, the ministers gave in their resignation. Some of them, by the way, pushed it off because they wanted to close something. Some of them announced they were resigning and then never really gave in the papers. But they were resigning. But all of their the heads of the different states that are involved and all the people that are in charge under them, none of them left. So the CEOs of each one of the ministries stayed in their position, and their different consultants stayed in their position, which is not what happens when you leave and saying I'm taking things apart. And more so that some other parties, as was said, there are suddenly ministries that are vacant. Everyone wants to take a ministry. Why are they not being given out to other parties and other members that stayed? And sorry, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you good.
Yes.
Are you saying that they're not being given out because they expect them to come back in? Is that like when Ben-Gvir left?
They're being saved. They're being saved for them. They're absolutely not be given to others, and the power is being stayed. And when you come to asking about the municipal level, things that we need on a day-to-day from these offices, nothing's changed. There were opportunities that we jumped on and said, great, we need this to be pushed forward. Who's going to be the next minister and start working? And they're like, hold your horses. Nothing's really going to change for the next week. We're continuing. We're not signing anything new because it's still part of this whole, back and forth to show that we're pushing it and show that we're fighting it. But they understand that they have nothing better waiting for them on the other side. They have nothing better waiting for them in elections. So it's a bit of a game for the public. Now, when it comes to your question regarding the war, so I think that there's two ways to look at it. One is you're absolutely correct. It's ridiculous. We're in a real war. We're in there and we're fighting, and we have to win the war and we have to focus on that. The other side of it is I have to give him a little bit of credit. It's also how the system works. I think it's the beauty of democracy and beauty of a democratic system. We are going to elections within the next year and a half is the limit that we're possibly gonna get to elections. And in my eyes, I actually feel that going to a healthy elections at this point of the war, I agree. I'm not talking about when you're a month after October 7th and you're at 7 fronts and, we can't even go to work. But in this scenario, obviously there are downsides and obviously there are costs. And I hope it would be as, appropriate and solicit as possible. But in the end of the day, that's how democracies work. And in the long run, that's what shows our strength, not our weakness.
Okay. So that's an interesting point about maybe it being a useful thing to have an election at this time. Maybe we do need a switch up. So let's talk about that. I'll stick with you, Jonathan, Yonatan, and then we'll go over to Jeremy. There is a lot of discussion. We had Amir Avivi on the program last week about a plan for how to deal with Gaza. And now there's talk about going into Jabalia, which is a place that we haven't been in since the beginning of the war. I mean, for God's sakes, Gaza is 400 square kilometers, yet we keep popping in and out of places. Prime Minister Netanyahu has never laid out a vision of holding on to Gaza clearly. A few times he has said that, yes, the military will stay there or partial. Some roads were built. In fact, I know one of the engineers for the roads that were built that were supposed to bisect Gaza. But right now, is there a clear vision? And here's another aspect of that. Trump a long time ago already said, long time in our modern sense of long time, he said, clear Gaza out, we're going to make it into the Riviera. France just gave a green light. Their Supreme Court, their courts said that we are going to extend refugee status to any Gazans, any and every Gazans. Why weren't there ships picking them up the next day? I would have thought that Israel would have had boats picking them up and dropping them off in Marseille. And okay, let's get the refugees out there, be able to fight that war. So my question is there a vision for Gaza? Will there be a vision for Gaza, a vision for victory, and not one that's going to leave Israel bitter and disappointed that we didn't know how to actually handle this thing?
So that's a great question. I believe that there is a vision for Gaza. And I believe it's one of the scenarios in which the American government is actually pushing more than the Israeli government. This is happening in questions of sovereignty and a lot of behind the scenes. You see that there's a unique situation where there's actually more pressure for things to happen from the American side than it is in the Israeli government. And it's a lot of fear that the Israeli government is going to have to actually deal with the situation. Now, there's two directions that this can go through. One is there really is a big vision. We could discuss it. We shared with you a few days ago. There are a few, but there's potential really large deals that involve multiple large countries in our area that are all involved into one deal and you have to close the completion of the deal for it to come forward, but something that has the potential to really change the entire Middle East. And the other side is the technical side of it, in which Israel is known for having challenges in the small technical details. So where to actually move the people, how to actually get the boats, how to make sure the courts don't stop you from doing it, how to make sure the media doesn't come and say that you're causing starvation. It's a whole system that, again, possibly comes from the beauty of us are caring so much, but because we care so much, these things are done slowly and very sensitively.
The international perception is not that we care so much, right?
Well, unfortunately, we all know that sometimes we care too much.
Well, it doesn't look that way on the international arena. Nobody's like, yeah, those Israelis care too much. That's not one of the problems out there.
Well, I think that comes from a known issue that we have to deal with. Part of us caring so much also for our enemies is us caring so much for what the media thinks about us. And that's kind of a chicken and egg situation. When you show them that you care, then they push more to show that they less care. And you're kind of causing it to be worse on all fronts. And I think that if we were more, in the end of the day, it comes down to us making decisions. And that's what we're not always so great at.
Yeah, but
you got to make a full decision.
Tell me something. Give me something to chew on. Like what is the thinking? Like what is the thinking with Gaza?
So one of the options, in the end of the day, this is something that's decided with, two people, President Trump and Bibi Netanyahu, that in the end of the day make the final decision with on their own. But I think that there's some ideas that are very large and not for sure that they're attainable, but Trump knows how to dream big. I was describing to you a few days ago that one of the options that's really being thought through is if you are able to make a deal that comes between the United States, Israel, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia, okay? And that deal comes and says, we're going to build change the route of the ships across the globe. And if we're able to bring ships to come and dock in Saudi Arabia, which is an easier route for them, and also economically, this is a huge economic move. And we know that President Trump, in the end of the day, it's about the business. And if they dock on Saudi Arabia and we are able to build a route through Saudi Arabia, through Jordan, and then goes through Israel and makes Gaza a huge international port for supplies across the world, this is not just something that will be economically unbelievable for all of those four countries. It's also a deal that changes the entire structure. Now, the reason that it's potentially realistic is that the Gaza, it touches most of the sensitive issues when it comes to Gaza, because it's something that has to do with the port. I'm not talking about the people that I'm putting there. I'm not talking about Israel taking the sovereignty on the land there. It's an international land that and when it comes to so much money and influence on the shipping routes, which then the United States is in charge of worldwide, it has the potential to overshadow the issues that the world would want and can convince them. Now, assuming that they're going in that route, again, with the minute details of how they pull it off, then we understand why it's taking a little bit longer, because you're talking about a huge deal of many countries together. And once they consolidate it, then they can move forward much quicker to solve the actual problem.
Okay, so you're talking about an overland rail that would be from Saudi Arabia to Iraq, to Jordan.
So it doesn't have to cross to
Israel.
Iraq. It could go straight up through Jordan and then cross over to Israel, actually, through the bottom.
Right. Okay. So it's closer to the Aqaba side, and then hits Gaza, and Gaza would be this international shipping port, right? It's a giant vision. It's a giant vision.
I mean, that's President Trump. He likes giant visions.
Jeremy, what do you think? Is that an attainable kind of idea?
Look, there are a lot of different regional options. This is the first time I'm hearing of this one. I think it's just as good as all the other ones. And, as Yonatan said very wisely, it's up to the president of the United States of America to make a decision which one he likes. I think when we're looking at all of the regional versions of what the day after looks like, it's going to require a victory in Gaza. It's going to be very difficult to expect Trump or frankly any of these Arab nations to go ahead and to deal with this while we're still seeing warfare in Gaza. No one's going to build a rail to Gaza when we're still fighting there. So we have to be able to get the victory there first. And going back to one of your previous questions, I think the IDF is looking at various ways to be able to change things up and go with a different direction compared to what we've seen until now. And I'm very hopeful that we will see that victory very soon. Yonatan served over 600 days. I've served over 300. Yes.
Jeremy, what does victory look like? What is it? Is refugees a part of a victory where you basically help people that are in a war zone get out? It doesn't mean Israeli sovereignty. Doesn't mean Israeli military control. What does victory look like? What's going to bring satisfaction to Israelis? What's going to bring? What's going to bring
look,
it?
There are three main objectives that we set out to in the Gaza leg of the war. Right, we've been very successful, obviously, in the Lebanese, Syrian, and definitely in the Iranian side. When it comes to Gaza, we said, number one, we want to dismantle the government of Hamas over Gaza. Any solution in which Gaza is still run by Hamas or a Hamas proxy, you cannot call victory. Number two, you have to be able to get back the hostages. That's obviously stuff that we know many on the center left have been focusing on, but even on the right, everyone is focusing on that as well. You need to be able to, return the hostages. There's 50 of those left. And then the third one is whatever the end game scenario looks like, whether that is something that is a regional solution, it's a military occupation, it's a situation in which, and again, there are various things in terms of how this could look like. Obviously, different people are pulling in different directions, but the third objective is, regardless of what the day after looks like, that we can return all of the residents of southern Israel, of the Gaza envelope, of the periphery around the Strip, that they can go ahead and live there without the threat of what we saw before October 7th, which is the ability of whoever's there to be able to go ahead and attack our country and our sovereignty. So those are the three things in terms of the objectives. Again, how you get there, the components, the parameters, whether we're talking about the refugees, whether we're talking about a full military occupation. One of the things that I've heard that's been talking about is to sort of copy the Judea and Samaria model that we have of the 6 different districts, which Judea and Samaria has been cut up into, and sort of do a similar situation here within the Gaza Strip. I've heard other types of military solutions that I would probably not want to mention on the air, but there, like I said, there's a lot of strategic thinking. There are a lot of ideas there. Frankly, there are things being talked about that I didn't hear being talked about within the Knesset corridors 6 months ago, or even really 4 months ago. We have to see how this stuff plays out. But again, we have to have our eye on those 3 objectives and not sort of get mixed up between the ends and the means, which is more important here. We need to serve those 3 objectives, and however we get there, that's going to be what it is that looks for that picture of victory.
All right, I hear what you're saying. At the same time, there's something a little bit frustrating what you're saying, which is like, why aren't there shelf? What do they call Tochniot Megira? What do we call that in English? Plans drawn up in such a scenario. It's like we're just, it's like frustrating. I would have liked to be like, okay, here's what we're doing in this situation. We're also almost 2 years into this war. Would have liked to hear clear, and that lack of clarity is also causing us to have problems on the international field. We'll get to that in our last question, but let's stay with you, Jeremy, just for one more question right now. and that is on the issue
Yeah.
of the Druze, right? The Druze are calling us, and they're saying, listen, take sovereignty or maybe some kind of confederation, help us gain our sovereignty, help us join into a confederation with Israel that you're like, we become your protectorate. They're out there in Sweda, which is kind of right north of Jordan. It's not so close physically to Israel as it looks like right now. And I say that because borders do change in this region seemingly quite quickly. What's your take on the Druze? You also have Druze Knesset members that you're friendly with. How are they seeing it? What's your take on Israel's north and the Druze?
Yeah, I mean, we have 3 Druze Knesset members now, which is nice. 6 months ago, we only had 1. Two of them, I believe, 2 of the 3 crossed the border into Syria. I look forward to talking to them tomorrow in the Knesset cafeteria. Sort of get some impressions from them from what's happening there. I think it's important to say that the Druze are really in 2 areas in southern Syria. There's the area that's closer to the Golan Heights, and then there's the mountain there, by Sweda, and that's where, of course, the focus has been in terms of the fighting, in terms of what we're seeing, in terms of the forces from Syria. And look, there are a lot of ways this could go. Let's start with saying that it's a very good thing that the Israeli government did go ahead and choose to take action. Let's also say that it's nice to see also the American administration trying to play a role here to make sure that we don't see either a continuation of a genocide or a genocide. Again, you have different reports coming out of there. I don't want to go ahead and come down on one side or another, but we'll say the reports coming out of there before the IDF went through were quite alarming. And we have to also say that if we're looking at the population within southern Syria, you have people there who are not Druze, right? If you're talking about annexation or application of sovereignty, you have people there who are not Druze. You have areas of Druze who are not in the Sweda area, which are, the Druze in the Sweda area, we saw the Israeli flags, we saw they like us very much. There's a little bit more questions in terms of we'll call it the Syrian side of the Golan Heights. That's an area in between. We're not so sure as much about their particular loyalty. So there's this, I'll say, this is something that's been unfolding over, the last week. We need to be able to get a lot more information before we can make decisive decisions. But it is very clear that there is a sizable amount of Druze within Syria who are looking at what is happening here with Israel supporting them and saying, hey, we'd rather be there. We'd rather be with our Israeli Druze brothers. That seems to be a good spot for us. Will that come to fruition? How will the Israeli government officially go in there? How will other actors respond to that? We'll see when the time comes. But I think the most important part of this development, whatever happens in terms of long term, is what we're seeing with the 4 Druze settlements within the Golan Heights. Everyone knows Majid Shams, but there's another 3 of them as well. And what we've seen, particularly over this week, it's been a trend that's been happening for a while, but we see their loyalty to the state of Israel increasing, and particularly the voices coming out from those 4 Druze villages in the Golan Heights, seeing what's happening to their brothers in Swed there. You suddenly see a situation in which they are very much taking a lot of motions to come a lot closer to us. And I think regardless of what happens, this is a very good opportunity to see them be better integrated. And of course, this means the future of the Golan Heights very solidly within Israeli control forever.
Let's take a look at a video of a leading Druze religious figure who's publicly urging Israel to annex the Druze mountain region. Let's watch that together.
لأن دولة إسرائيل على أرضها التاريخية ولنكون جزءا من دولة إسرائيل الكبرى على أرضها التاريخية لأن إسرائيل دولة ديمقراطية دولة علمانية دولة مدنية دولة لا دينية تحترم شعوب العالم وتصون كرامتهم وتدافع عن وجودهم نطالب بضمنا إليها ونتشرف بالحصول على جنسيتها وحمل هويتها نحن لسنا سوريين ولا نتشرف بهذا الكيان السوري الداعش ولا بجنسيته.
Okay, that was a very interesting Interesting words that he said there. Like we are not Syrians. We're not honored by its identity. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. And this is a group of people who really don't have their own country, and so therefore they're happy to be part of a different identity. Although I'm a little bit surprised at this leader. I would have thought that he would just say, "Listen, we want our own, just like the Kurds. We want our own autonomous region, and okay, we'll confederate with Israel." Why wouldn't he say that, Jeremy? You're nodding your head. Why not?
Yeah, that's just not the Druze way. The Druze way in every country they live in, whether it's Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, and until quite recently in Syria, are to live according to the laws of the land. Is the halachic component that we use in halacha of minhag hamakom, right? Minhag Medina. So that's really what the Druze believe in. And sorry, what?
You want to translate that?
Yeah, so I'm saying the translation of that is the custom of the state, the custom of the place. And what that means is that the Druze do not want nationalism. These are not the Kurds. These are not Palestinians in Gaza or some sort of pan-Arabian movement or ISIS on the more religious side. These are people who say we're happy to be citizens of whatever melting pot of whatever country we're in. We'll be loyal citizens. We see that very much with the Druze citizens within the state of Israel. Like I said, until recently, there's been a little bit of an exception of the four, in the Golan, but that's changing now. And this has really done a lot, to help towards that movement. But again, the idea of the Druze is we do not want a state. We've never had a state. That's not part of our ambitions. We might view ourselves as a nation, but we don't have a movement to become a nation state. And that's what has allowed them to be such an important part of the Israeli fabric of society. Mm-hmm. And that's also why it's very easy for them to say, yeah, Syria doesn't work for us anymore, so we want to move over to Israel.
Yonatan, Marcus, final question. The stuff that we talk about, and I asked the same thing to Nadia, maybe you guys heard, it's like the stuff that we're talking about, it is not popular in the world right now. It's not popular. Ruling Gaza, that is not what the majority opinion on TikTok is. Controlling a part of Syria, that's not the normative narrative out there. What was another issue over there? Whatever. Bottom line is a strong Israel, a big Israel, a militarized Israel. It's not what's cool out there, and we are on the wrong side of the algorithm, shall we say? Okay, the algorithm is out there against us. How do we convert the stuff that we're talking about here, which is good policy that's good for this region, good for the peoples of this region, good for the Druze, good for decent Gazans, bad for Hamas? How do we convert that good policy into legitimate discourse out there? How do we get more? We're on the wrong side of legitimacy right now. We're being kind of outflanked in terms of the media war, which is you're in the army, you're in the intelligence. Well, that is a battlefront that we are definitely not winning right now. What do you think?
That is correct. So there's a few parts that we can be better on. First of all, it's a matter, and I said this earlier, it's a matter of understanding what we want and what is right for us to do. That question should have nothing to do with what the world feels. By the way, in both directions. That means, and I've said this before, even the American government, if it's going to push for something that, could be, in my opinion, great, but the government's job is to sit and understand what is right for Israel. And once we decide what is right for Israel, that's what we have to stand by, regardless of what we hear from around the globe. That's the first part. The second part is a little anecdotal, but it's important to say is, it's there's this old video from many years ago in Israel. It's this comedy skit that went around in which you see there's these people standing outside a building and they have signs and they're really sitting there shouting. There was like this big garbage pail. It's like ugly garbage pail in the entrance of the building, and they're sitting and shouting and they're like, move this garbage pail. Why is this garbage pail here? It's disturbing us. And then like as they're saying, you literally see someone come pick up the garbage pail and pull it away, and they just literally, it gets quiet for a second, and then they flip their signs over and it says, "We need a garbage pail. Why is there no garbage pail? Where are we supposed to throw our garbage?" And, obviously it's a joke, but I think that in the end of the day, from a certain perspective, it's a truth to the situation. The people who are looking to be against Israel, they'll find their reasons. Okay. And that's why when we're true to ourselves, we'll know to be true to the people around us, and we'll know to convince them that what we're doing is right. Now, when the question comes to what's true to ourselves, part of what Jeremy was saying before, for the last 2 years, people are throwing, we're becoming a regional power. Wow, look at the, the regional power of Israel. Well, you know what? That comes with some responsibilities. And being a regional power comes with a cost. So when it comes to what's happening in Lebanon, we have a responsibility to not just the borders around us, it's to the region. And we have a responsibility to make sure that people are safe. Now, when am I going to risk my soldiers? When I'm going to think? That's already a complex question that has to be dealt with per the situation. But there's we're not in the same world anymore. And this is also part of what President Trump changed worldwide. There isn't some border line where it's like, okay, if right across that red line I see people being slaughtered, then I'm just going to ignore it because it's not on my hands. No, I have a responsibility as part of a local regional power. The last point I want to say is that, you said about intelligence, it's about understanding, and this is something that, Yishai, you're in the forefront of, and it's very important. It's understanding that one of the zones that we need to take part of is the international spokesmen in the media. People would understand that is one of the important pillars of the war, of our legitimacy of the government. And I feel that we do not, discuss it often enough. I once discussed, going way back, I said, I uploaded a video similar to what we're doing right now, a podcast, and the podcast was not up for 10 seconds. I think it had like 3 views, and there was maybe about 20 to 25 comments about the video that were already discussing anti-Israel commentary, where the comments were quicker than the length of the video, which means it was content. And as you see it within seconds, you're like, okay, this is an AI system, probably not a complex software, that is immediately being obviously able to consolidate the information of the video way quicker than having to watch it, and is already formulating an anti-Israel response. And I was sitting there not annoyed, I was sitting there on. I said, this is so simple, and we're not in that field. And as I understand and know the capabilities and the unbelievable minds that are in intelligence in the IDF, this is a very little, you could take a team of like 5 people that I can name them that will be able to not just do this well. They can be so much better than the problems around us. It's a decision on whether or not we want to focus on that route, and whether or not we understand how important that really is to the world, because the average person that's just watching a video and going to the comments, he doesn't know. He doesn't know to say that it's truth or not. He doesn't know to say who's behind it. And I wish we did more there.
Legitimacy is important. Gentlemen, I want to thank you. Do you have any last comment, Jeremy, on the legitimacy issue, on coolness, legitimacy?
I have to agree with Yonatan again that we need to be doing more in terms of Hasbara. Yishai, I think your listeners, viewers, they like seeing you on Pierce Morgan and all these other places. I know you're on the forefront of that Hasbara. And I think it's also the message. I think the important message which you convey that not many others do. Why should you be on Israel's side, Mr. Tucker Carlson and friends? Because Israel's the winners, and you want to be with the winners. And there's a reason why President Trump wants to be with Israel, because again, we are that regional power. And yeah, there is a reason why the Druze are asking to go ahead and be a part of us. Get with the program, people. Get with the program and understand how things work in the Middle East and why it is that so many people want to be a part of what Israel is.
Gentlemen, very good points. Thank you for your analysis. Thank you for your good work out there. Jeremy Saltan is our Knesset insider, strategist at the Knesset, has been working in the Knesset for over 16 years and has helped prime ministers formulate good policy. Jeremy, thank you so much for being with us. And Major Yonatan Marcus, Chief of Staff here in Gush Etzion in the Efrat Municipality, strategic advisor to the mayor and the chairman of our health committee, and a major intelligence in the IDF. Thank you so much for all your good work, gentlemen. Keep it up, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Yishai. Good to see you, Jeremy.
Thank you. Have a Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov. Have a good week. Great stuff. And it's fun to have that think tank, right? These guys are really thinking it out. And they're out there on the front lines, not just thinking about it. And that's the beauty about Zionism. We're not just thinking about it. We're actually making it happen. Those 2 guys, they're making it happen. They're involved. Both of them Anglos. They're here in the land. Anglo means English speakers, but they're here in the land making a difference. And that's the difference between Zionism and pro-Israel. Pro-Israel, yay, go Israel. I'm with it. Zionism, I'm going to take a part in it. I'm going to take a step in it. I'm going to be part of this story. I'm going to help it. I'm going to fight for it. Wherever I am, I'm going to take some kind of a proactive step in order to make Israel flourish, to make that great moment that we're living in come to life. However, there are, of course, issues. And right now there is seemingly an issue with Israel's relations with Christians. At least that's what Matt Getz tells us. Watch this video of Matt ripping into Israel and asking a simple question: is Israel safe for Christians? Here he is.
Local Christians love Israel. It's a land with a 4,000-year connection to our faith. But with the current erratic spasms of the Netanyahu government, the love may be unrequited. Is Israel an unwelcoming place for Christians? A new look into correspondence between U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee and the Israeli government raises questions about whether Christians are being mistreated by Israel. Huckabee alleges that's what's happening. The ambassador sent a letter to the Israeli Interior Minister accusing Israel of blocking Christian groups from entering the country. As a private citizen, Governor Huckabee personally led Zionist Christians on such tours. Now, Ambassador Huckabee initially met with the government of Israel to plea for the Christians who wanted to come and enjoy the Holy Land. But those pleas were ignored. Now Huckabee is threatening reciprocal punishment against Israel and their visa seekers wanting to come to America. He cited harassment and negative treatment of Christian groups. The nerve of Israel to demand America's weapons and money, but then refuse our touring Christians is astounding. About 3 billion people on the planet Earth tie their faith to the geography around Israel. And I believe everyone needs a little more of the golden rule. Treat others as you would want to be treated.
All right, so he goes on here in this video. He actually goes on and he says that Huckabee is calling to BDS Israel because Huckabee is calling to challenge visas and to tell organizations not to support financially Israel. So he says some really intense stuff there. Is he way off base? Well, I hear also we need some folks who really understand this issue. So we have with us two amazing gentlemen. One is Josh Reinstein, who is the director of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus since its inception in 2004, and the president of the Israel Allies Foundation, and is the producer and founder of the hit TV show Israel Now News, which is seen by 35 million viewers in 191 countries around the world. So, Josh, thank you so much for being with us. And we have another Josh, and that is Josh Waller, executive director of Hayovel, a Christian Zionist volunteer organization in the land of Israel, supporting Jewish pioneers in Judea and Samaria. He also has a great media presence as the co-host of the Israel Guys show, which reaches 20 million viewers and 500,000 subscribers in 2024. Josh Waller. So we got two great Joshes. Gentlemen, thank you for coming on the show. Let's start with Josh Reinstein. Josh, what are you, in a car park or somewhere? Where are you? Underground? What's the deal? Where are you at?
Well, I was driving home to my home office, and you asked me to pull over. So I found a nice parking lot where we can do this show from.
That's
always good to be together.
Thank you very much for joining me. So, Josh Reinstein, let's start with you. Tell me, is this a tempest in a teapot? Is this a crisis? The Huckabee, who's like our big ally, is out there writing a letter that went public. I don't know if they meant to do that, but it's gone public and it has hurt a lot of people. I got a call from Fox. I got a call from WorldNet Daily. They're like, "Hey, what's going on? Israeli young religious Israelis are spitting at Christians. The government's denying visas. What's going on? Is that an exaggeration, or is there a real crisis here?"
Look, there's a real issue, but there's not a real crisis. Christians' support for Israel is paramount. Everyone knows that Jews and Christians are working together around the world to stand with Israel. Christians are our greatest allies. There's no better friend in the world, maybe President Trump, but other than Ambassador Huckabee. And so this is an issue because, and it's not based on what people are trying to say, tourism visas, but more an issue for volunteer and clergy visas, because the status of evangelical Christians have not been resolved here in the land. That being said, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Israel's the only country in the world where the Christian population grows every year, or in the Middle East, and not decreases like the 22 Arab countries around us. And Christians have all the same rights on the land, in the land of Israel, including land rights, clergy rights, religious rights. So it's not a crisis, but it is an issue, and it's something that the government needs to take a look at and see how we can resolve. And it's a long-standing issue. This is something that I've been working on since the inception of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus in 2004. So it hasn't been resolved. It needs to be resolved, especially since we're talking about greatest friends. And it mostly affects Bible-believing Christians, not the mainline Christians like Catholics and Greek Orthodox and Anglicans, but the dearest friends of the Jewish people, the people who believe in the Bible.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Josh Waller, I guess that this issue would be close to you since your folks need visas to come here. Your volunteers. Have you been having this problem? Are you aware of it? And I'm sure that as a Christian in the land, you're getting a lot of people writing to you, and somebody who's connected to America, you're getting a lot of people asking you, hey, what the heck is going on? Because I'm getting stuff and people are saying, you know, is Israel, the anti-Israel folks are making a hubbub out of this, trying to paint Israel as a non-tolerant country and an anti-Christian country. So what's going on, and how are you responding?
Sure. Well, thanks, Yishai, for having me on. And I would just say, first off, can you hear me there? You hear me, right?
I hear you good. Yep.
Yeah, it's coming. Okay. I would just say, first off, is that no, we're not having any visa problems, as you would probably expect. And I think it's really sad to see what's happening. And I think there's a little bit of misinformation out there. And I would point this to one big thing. And I would love to hear your feedback on this. This is called, in my opinion, there's a few situations. Those situations can be taken care of internally. It shouldn't be a big deal. There's offices that take care of things like this. And I believe this is an internal discussion. What's happening, I believe, outside of that is that there's a big evil coup that is trying to attempt to divide, and I believe Josh Reinstein spoke to this briefly there, that's trying to divide two people that are essential partners for the time we live in right now. And that is the nations of the world. Most of the pro-Israel nations are Christian nations. Most of those people in those nations that are supporting Israel really strongly are Christians. Not every Christian denomination, but many evangelicals are supporting Israel really strong. And what I saw from my seat here in Israel, welcoming Christians in, was an attempt to delegitimize Israel's relationship with these, and demonize really Israel and the relationship with the Christian world in order to achieve something. There's a big goal in mind, and it's to make Israel look somewhat like its evil neighbors. That's what's really going on in the back scene. And I want to super emphasize this. This is not Huckabee. Huckabee is a dear friend, and it means only the best for Israel. That's 100%. Now, there's other people that are playing this thing in the background. Huckabee didn't send out a public letter. That went public in the background. By who? By the people who want to make this, to divide forces. We got sovereignty on the table right now. We need support for it. The Jewish people are expanding in their homeland. What's the last thing that these leftists can throw? Oh, let's make everybody in the world think that the Jews actually hate their best friends. Well, that's what's, I feel like that's what's actually going on in the background.
Okay, well, one thing is for sure is that it's part of the anti-Israel campaign. The question is, are also Israelis throwing fuel onto the fire? Because there are cases of spitting that has happened, that we have documented cases in the Old City. We have issues, and there is maybe some kind of visa blockages. I don't know about that. But I mean, the question is, have there been mistakes made on the Israeli side? But I agree with you that there is a purposeful campaign to try to divide friends. And you're adding a very interesting component, which is like at this moment where sovereignty is on the table, the left, the Pali crowd, the anti-Israel crowd, but some of the folks that are pushing this, what has happened on the right wing, and I want to turn to Josh Reinstein. What's going on with the American right wing? We got all these people who are formerly friends of Israel, like Candace Owens, like Tucker. Gosh, they have become virulent, not even mildly. They've become virulent anti-Semites, and they're pumping their vile out into the ecosphere of social media. And this Huckabee letter, it was intended to or not, has certainly also added fuel to that fire. What do you say?
Well, I think that the fact that the big attack on Israel is that Christians aren't getting enough visas really shows how ridiculous the situation is. Because about a hour drive from where I am right now in Damascus and south of it, they're murdering hundreds of Christian families. Do you understand? Like, Christians are under attack. There's a massive genocide against Christians in North Africa, in the Middle East. And what the pundits are talking about is that we're having visa issues for a few people who want visa issues. Now, I don't minimize the fact that there are great organizations that aren't getting these visas, and they need to, but it's such a minimal problem in the grand scale of things. And you mentioned the Christians getting spit on. Okay, these are a few kids who are disrespectful. They were caught, they were punished, and our the prime minister came out and made a statement saying how Christians are our greatest allies and we love Christians. Can you imagine another country where a Jewish person is spit on, and then the prime minister makes a statement about it? The Jews are being killed in France, in England, just for being Jewish, and you don't have that kind of reaction. So I think that issue that the best our detractors can do, that they're not getting the visas they want, it really shows how well Christians are liked and supported in the state of Israel. Now, you go to the extremes like Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. I believe it's a financial thing. Okay, these aren't people who are in the clergy. These aren't Bible-believing Christians. These are people who are conservative commentators. And what you need to do is make a big distinction between who's actually Christian, who's conservative. In Israel, unfortunately, they lump them all together. Like, oh yeah, the right is Christian. It's not always that case. Christians in America stand with Israel like never before. In the MAGA movement alone, 94% supported the strikes on Iran, because of their support for Israel and their support for U.S. security. So we're seeing a huge rise in support for Israel. And then we see a few people on the other side trying to make issues out of smaller clerical bureaucratic issues to try to divide. But I think it's a little silly that there's even this show about that topic. This is something that's going to be taken care of very fast now that it's been a public issue. It can be sorted out with a few dozen visas. It's not a national security issue. It's not a big deal like people are trying to make it. And then they'll go on to the next, blood libel or problem with Israel. But what's happening is that this administration, the Trump administration, is the most pro-Israel administration we've ever seen. The who's who of faith-based diplomacy, from Paula White to Mike Huckabee to Pete Hegseth, are all in this administration, and they're all very, very sound in their support for Israel. And there are people out there who are really panicking because they see that Israel and America are together again. They see sovereignty on the table, as Josh Waller mentioned. They see a lot of other things that they don't want to see on the table as well. And so they're trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, for lack of a better analogy.
Okay, very good. And I mean, the reason, Josh, that we're having Josh Reinstein, the reason that we're having this show is because people reached out to me. I told you WorldNet Daily and Fox, they both reached out to me and they're like, hey, what's going on? With real concern, because there is a targeted campaign to divide exactly those allies, and on those allied lines, the jihad and progressivism, they attack every intellectual support for Israel. Anything, if it's the Bible, if it's Israeli history, if it's the Jewish family, the attack is across the board. So when they identify alliances, they want to undermine it. Josh Waller, have you heard from your people on the ground? Are they falling for it, or are they like, nah, this is just like Josh Reinstein says, it's nothing but today's flavor of anti-Israelism?
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. It is today's flavor of anti-Semitism that some in the camp of pro-Israel are being duped by. That clip you played right at the beginning, you saw the glee in that guy's face. He was really enjoying the fact that he had some really substantial material against Israel, or what he thought was really substantial material against Israel in a real religious way. And there's a lot of people out there that can be swayed by that. But as Josh Reinstein just mentioned, that's not the facts. This is not a real substantial thing. This is a very small scale thing that, hey, guys, I've been here working in Israel as a Christian with very strong ideology and of support for Israel, strong ideology that says Jewish identity means a lot and is super important. And one of the foundations of our organization is to first and foremost recognize Jewish identity. Anybody that doesn't, well, that should be, there's legal process in Israel that protects Jewish identity. And that's super, super important. And Ambassador Huckabee also agrees with that. And he's for that legal process that there should be. This is a small Jewish state. It needs to be cared for. Jewish identity is so important. And Huckabee is also a trumpeter of that campaign and is on our team. These guys that are filled with anti-Semitism, just Jew hatred out there, are trying to take advantage of this and misrepresent it to the masses. I mean, I just saw Michael Knowles. We've got a lot playing on here. We have a stacked process. We have the church that was unintentionally hit in Gaza. We had the Arab attack in Sinjil that was blamed on settlers, and then we had the attack in Taipei that was blamed on settlers. And then to end up that kind of build up, then we had the Christian visa issue. So guys, this is a very sinister, played out. These are things that are very they're being trying to make make a big rift. Well, there's not a rift. There's going to be a rift with the anti-Semites, and they're going to fall off, the people that truly hate Israel, because they're going to be like, I mean, Michael Knowles made a pretty big statement. He said to Israel, "You're losing me," over the issue in Gaza with the church that was accidentally hit. Those are losses. But you're going to have the true Zionist people are unconditional support of Israel. And I'll just wrap with this. My first response to this whole thing, Yishai, was there's one thing that every Christian Zionist, Huckabee, all of us, we believe it. The Jewish people are the eternal people. It's not the Americans. It's not the any other people group. Is the Jewish people are the eternal people group. The only eternal thing that we have is how we connect to that eternal people, the Jewish people. And when we bless you, well, there's an eternal blessing. If we don't, it's just not. And so that's one of the fundamentals of Huckabee, myself, and other people. And so I think that's at the root of this discussion, is people that recognize that and people that don't.
I think what you're saying is very true and very deep, Josh Waller. I want to say that the growth of anti-Semitism in the United States, even though I think the majority of people don't share it, and I think that there's a real Qatari money and other monies that are flowing into Tucker and those people, and it's skewing the way people think. I do think that it's important for people to know anti-Semitism is a barometer of the health of a state, of a nation, and when it creeps in, it undermines the spiritual national health of that country. It is to the detriment of the United States that these people are bringing anti-Semitism into the United States. It is a detriment to them. It hurts the United States, and it'll eventually cause it to shrink. The minute a country becomes anti-Israel, in the long term, it just shrinks from its size, from its blessings. And that's what you're talking about, Josh Reinstein. You're talking about faith-based diplomacy. Well, faith-based diplomacy, first and foremost, is to love the Jewish people of Israel. By the way, what did you think of that interview, Josh Reinstein? What did you think of that interview with Tucker and Ted Cruz? I thought to myself that Ted kind of missed a few simple points that he could have gained. If they ask you, is the Israel today the Israel of the Bible? The answer is, yep. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that just it? Isn't that exactly that? Like, isn't that cool? That Israel today, that's the whole point. Go ahead.
I'll tell you what the issue is here, Yishai, and I've been involved in this since, as you mentioned in the opening, since 2004 in faith-based diplomacy, when people take their biblical support and turn to real political actions. People didn't realize how powerful faith-based diplomacy was until this Trump administration came to be. It is Christians, not countries, that stand with Israel. And the Christians bring their countries with them. Because of faith-based diplomacy, we have embassies in Jerusalem. We have legislation making financial BDS irrelevant. We even have African Union status, observer status in the African Union, because Christians got involved. And that support is growing. And I think when everyone started attacking Israel after October 7th, and you had the whole world against us, and we still won, and we still brought support from America, people started saying, hey, how is this happening? And they realized it's because of Christian support for Israel. So now everyone shooting in wild directions, from an attack in Gaza that accidentally hit a church, to the other ones that Josh Waller made, and all the way to bureaucratic visas to try to sever that relationship. But that relationship is unseverable. And that's the power of faith-based diplomacy. They support us because God supports us. They support us because of faith. Faith is not something that can be canceled. It's just like you and me, Yishai. If someone offered us $1 million to eat a pork sandwich, we would say no, because our faith says you can't eat pork. For a lot of Christians, if someone offers them $1 million to go against Israel, not people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owen, they will say no, because this is an issue of faith. They stand with Israel because God made a covenant with Israel, and they believe that they are grafted into that covenant. That is how their relationship with God was formed. And so it is impossible to break that bond.
Josh, I think we lost you for a second. Hold on. Josh Reinstein, I'm not hearing you perfectly. Josh Waller, are you hearing Josh Reinstein?
No, not coming through.
No, he's paused for a second there. Okay. 1 second. Let's bring him back in a second. But okay. 1 second. Josh Reinstein, we lost connection with you, so we're gonna pause you for a second. Josh Waller, is Josh Reinstein right about that unbreakable bond? I think he's right, but then again, there's a part of me that's
I'm with you. I'm concerned. I'm really concerned. You know why I'm really concerned? I'm really concerned because we just lost a Jewish one of your neighbors last week. 2 PA officers came down, shot. There was a terror attack. And where did you hear about that? Nobody was talking about it. They could care. What I take from that is that they don't care, and that's a real problem to me. I would have liked to see a statement coming from the ambassador's office. I think you will in the future. I think that Huckabee, of course, wants to do the right thing, and he's a friend. And no shape or form, fashion of the way, am I going to say that Huckabee's not the right man for the right job. He is. He needs the right people. He needs the right voices coming to him to have the right support. I've got a feeling like there's some people in that office right now that are not giving him the things that I'm seeing come out. I don't sense that the right things are being told to him, and he's being kind of pushed in a way that doesn't make sense to me, and I don't believe are truly him. So last week when the Jewish man was the terror attack happened, and he was killed not just down the road from your house, I would have liked to see a much bigger and more
robust
statement of saying this cannot happen. And on this other side of it, what we saw was an Arab terrorist that was killed, and we don't know how he was killed. And the world went crazy about it because they thought maybe a settler killed him. Maybe. There's no details, but the whole world already made up their mind about that. And that's what's concerning to me. I'm really concerned about a Christian community that like Josh Reinstein said, they do have faith. It is faith-based. But the thing with that faith is that we've seen Christians turn against Israel before, and if they do turn against with their faith, boy, is that a problem. So we've got to make sure and educate and make sure that doesn't happen.
Josh Reinstein, you're back now. Came out of the garage on our somewhere there out in Israel. Your last statement there. We lost you before. What were you saying?
Well, yeah, I'm back, but now I'm having trouble hearing you. I am out of the garage now. I'm out on the street. But just to finish what I was saying before, the relationship between Jews and Christians in the 21st century is unbreakable. And I think that everyone's going to learn that the hard way.
the state of Israel, the people of America are together and partners because we're the only two countries that were founded on Judeo-Christian values and believe in them. And that's not breakable. And that's why we're more than just friends and allies, we're partners because of that foundation of Judeo-Christian values. And I think as the years go on, especially under the Trump administration, we're going to see stronger alliances, not weaker ones. And those who are trying to attack it with issues here and there are going to learn that these are unbreakable bonds. These are bonds that were made. And I believe also it's the fulfillment of prophecy. It says in the Bible many times that God will send a hark to the nations, that the nations will carry our sons and daughters back to the land of Israel, that 10 Gentiles will grab the corners of our garment and lift us up. And that's what we're seeing today. That is fulfillment of that prophecy. And what God has decided to do cannot be broken by man. And so I'm very optimistic with the relationship. I see it growing not just year by year, but month by month. And I think a lot of these small differences or discussions will just go to the wayside like they always have.
Okay, that's a very positive outlook. And I guess you're not as concerned with these right-wing folks, right-wing social media commentators, these influencers changing hearts and minds. I think Josh Waller is a little bit more concerned about that. Am I right, Josh? Or how do you see that?
I would say that just on that point, Yishai, and I just for one last thing, and I'm sorry because I can't really hear what you're saying, but I did hear you say I'm not concerned about the commentators. I think that we saw this with the Iran strike, that they've been going more and more to the fringes, and that America is seeing now when 94% of MAGA supports a strike and they're saying that it's going to cause World War III and America should stay out of it, that they're on the fringe and that they're becoming more and more irrelevant. And the more they attack this alliance, the more irrelevant they will be. And again, sorry for cutting you off, Yishai, and I'm just going to sign off with that because of the technical problems. But love you guys. Yishai, you're doing a great job. Josh, it's always good to be together. And thanks for your time.
God bless you, Josh Reinstein. Thank you very much. You're the executive of the director of the Knesset Christian Allies Caucus and the president of the Israel Allies Foundation. And your TV show, Israel Now News, is featured all over the world. Thank you so much. Josh Waller, finish up. What do you think about what Josh Reinstein was saying?
It's very positive, and I think that it is one way of looking at it. It's I think I find myself more in the boat of trying to educate Christians on the right way, not just rallying. Josh Reinstein is a great rallier and has done amazing work within rallying Christians to support key political infrastructure and as far as moving the embassies and these things. For me, I sense a big problem when we don't see Christians aligning with Jewish people in big moments. Like, where's the Christians saying, that this attack, or any attack for that matter, it just never really, it doesn't resonate with them. It's not like something that really draws them to get involved. And to me, that shows a disconnect to the reality of what's happening here. And because of that disconnect, I have enough to worry about. I see people that are disconnected from the reality of the rebirth of the state of Israel and the coming back of, they're excited about it, but they don't see themselves involved with it. Also, Yishai, I just have to say, one of the organizations that was having visa issues here, and as part of this big thing like this is literally, and I don't have no earthly idea who they are, but they're Christian Missionary Alliance. It was right there in the news. Obviously, these things, like, it's just, to me, like, okay, Israel has laws and they have ways to do things. And in my humble opinion, international bodies have no business telling Israel how they should conduct their business when it comes down to how those laws are set up. And I, for one, am just appreciative of the Jewish nation who has arms opened, said, you, as Josh said earlier, you're fulfillment of prophecy. You're not coming here to change me or make me something that I'm not. You're coming to support what the Jewish people have already decided is the way we're moving forward. And I believe that that's how the nations should connect to Israel, not as judges amongst you, but as supporters that have a real role to support, not the judge, but to support. Israel will take care of the rest, in my opinion.
So
because I believe in you. That's a big thing. Because I believe in it. I believe that I don't believe you're the fake Jews that came back like the Tucker Carlson say. Right. That's the big difference. I believe you're the real Jews, which means if you're the real Jews and you're the Bible Jews, then This is really an honor to be a part of this thing.
That's
And
right. Then
to
God-
me, it's
then
the greatest
God's
honor in
actually
the world.
actually in gathering his children. It's really happening. And
right.
it's not fake. It's not a fake. And it's not all of the stuff that's being thrown. I think you're also hinting at something very important, which is Israel's got to be, it's got to toe a fine line, because on the one hand, we don't want to let missionaries in. We don't want missionaries to missionize our people. We want to have a relationship with people that stand with us, that stand with God, stand with the Bible. But at the same time, and I get this all the time on my comment section, I get people trying to missionize us all the time without end. Just right now, there's tons of people who will try to missionize all the time. There is a, and then you also have on the Jewish side, you have people who are disrespectful, who will spit, who will do all kinds of stuff. So you have a tension there. It's not like it's a perfect relationship. It has tensions, and it's only going to come through mutual respect. And that's that way we could be stronger as people are trying to follow God's word and believing that the Bible is real.
Mutual respect, but in the end of the day, honoring the Jewish people and their God-given role as people that are not only the inheritors of this land, but also the ones that have the God-given role of teaching the nations. That's a real strategic. I mean, there's so many people probably even in the comments now that may not get that. But what my encouragement is to Christians is to really search your heart and really ask yourself, if you believe in replacement theology, and everybody of course would say no, but then fold that out a little bit. What is replacement theology? Are you now the teachers of Israel? Have you become now the ones that are supposed to teach the Jewish people? Well, you believe in replacement theology. You're now have exalted yourself above the God-given role that God gave to Abraham and those physical descendants of Abraham that have all come back to the nation of Israel. It's a part of your role, and the nations are trying to take that role. And that's and this isn't really, we're throwing this is like dynamite, Yishai. But I really believe that the nation of Israel has a God-given role to teach the world. And if the world will open up to that and understand that, oh my gracious, we're living in redemptive times. And you're the one, your friends and neighbors of Ephrat and into Jerusalem and into Samaria are the ones that are declaring it to the entire world. What does redemption look like? And how is this going to unfold? If people start listening in to you, I think we're going to see something else happen. But until they do that, we'll keep repeating history, and that's not a pretty thing.
No, it is not. It is not. It's time for something else. It's time not for status quo, but for being reborn in the land. Josh Waller, Hayovel, serveinisrael.com, serveinisrael.com. Is that right? And also the
Serve Israel. Yep.
Oh, sorry. Serveisrael.com, serveisrael.com, and also Israel Guys on YouTube. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for all your good work for the Jewish people and for God's vision as laid out in the Bible. God bless you.
Thank you, Yishai. Keep up the great work yourself. Thanks.
All right. Josh Waller, an interesting conversation, an important one. And Josh Reinstein basically saying it's a tempest in a teapot. See the big picture. Let's get back to the alliance that needs to push stuff forward. All right, folks. We're an hour and 41 minutes into the live show. And we keep going because we got the best part for last. Before we get to that, I just want to say tonight on Yishai Fleisher TV, we're going to be showing a very important spiritual video about it. Actually, an innovative way that the nations can move forward in their connection to God and to the land of Israel. It's called the Abrahamic Faith. We're going to be talking about that tonight. And it's part of our Rose series of spiritual content on Sunday nights. So check that out. Moreover, you can support and strengthen us and what we do by liking, subscribing, commenting, becoming a member, and checking out our store. We have a great web store on YouTube. It's one of the tabs on YouTube. And moreover, you can super chat. If you want me to read one of your chats on today's show, there's an opportunity. Super chat it up, and it makes a big difference for us. It helps support the good work that we do. Speaking of the good work that we do, we have the one and only Malkah Fleisher, co-hostess with the mostest, not my sister, but my wife, Baruch Hashem, and one of the smartest and most daring commentators out there. Malkah Fleisher, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being with us.
One of the most daring.
You're quite daring.
Where's my cape?
You're very daring out there, Malkah.
Yeah, thanks. How are you doing, Yishai?
It's been a very intense show, and a lot of people have been saying intense things. I haven't had a chance to I think that having a lot of people on is good, but I don't always get to challenge them on the issues that I think that, I want people to air out issues, like on the Christian issue and on other issues. Like, sometimes there's tough questions that need to be asked, but okay. It's we're having a lot of fun. There's a lot of people.
Well, maybe you'll follow up with some of those guests. I was listening, Yishai, to, I was sitting, there's like a waiting room here where you can hear the people who are before you on the show as you're waiting to come on. And I was hearing the Josh Reinstein, Josh Waller interview, which I thought was really, really great and really, really interesting. And, as Josh Waller, who's frankly an expert on what's going on in the Christian world vis-a-vis Israel, is expressing concern, I want to say, we have a lot of people of faith who are not Jews who listen to this show. And I just want to say that in a certain sense, now hear me out for a second, I kind of understand and have a little bit of sympathy for people whose faith in the Jewish people is starting to see cracks. It's not good and it's not right, but there is a place in my heart that doesn't blame them, because over the last decade and more, there has been such an onslaught on people of faith in the United States and around the world. And when I say people of faith, unfortunately, I have to exclude, in this case, Islam, which I feel is spearheading the war against Jews and Christians. And so I unfortunately cannot include them in that grouping, even though I know that they're also people of faith. There has been such an onslaught on Jews and Christians to crack every aspect of their basic understandings of what God wants from them, what is right, what is wrong, what's a girl, what's a boy, whose land is this, whose land is it not, is America even legitimate, is it not, is Jerusalem, the capital of the Jewish people, or is it something for Islam? There has been such a fearsome war against people's minds, trying to brainwash their children. And I know that when you're watching me out there, whether you like Jews or not, you know very well that there has been a concerted effort to steal your children away from basic values of faith that have been taught to you and your ancestors before that. So when you get down to the Jewish people who you barely know, and you see on this thing that's called the news, but is really media, because there is no such thing as the news anymore. You can't rely on anyone to give you something called the news, because journalism isn't what we thought it was anymore. So then you don't know how to swallow this thing of the Jews, and you keep hearing stories and you keep seeing videos, and the Jewish people can't respond at the pace at which they're being attacked, and therefore it seems like an admission of guilt, because we literally cannot keep up with the huge barrage of attacks of various angles and types against us and accusations at every second. So you don't know how to deal with it. So then you go, I don't know how to deal with it, right? So there is a place inside of me that is not angry. That doesn't mean that you're right when you break away from your Bible and from what Hashem wants from the world, and from support for the Jewish people. And it's not that it's not that Malkah needs, or even the Jewish people need, for you to be on team Jews. It's like there's this team and that team, and be on our team. That's not really it. It's that when you start to crack in your relationship and your understanding about what the Jewish people are, and who they are, then it starts to crack your entire biblical relationship. You cannot have a normal, healthy relationship with the Bible if you cannot accept the protagonist of the story. And the protagonist of the Bible is the Jewish people and God. They are the good guys in the story of the Bible. And if one of the good guys is really a bad guy, then you're dealing with a whole topsy-turvy relationship to the Bible. And then you start to not believe in the Bible so much. And then Yahtzee, the bad guy wins. These people who've been trying to attack you now for decades and been pouring hundreds upon hundreds of millions of dollars and throwing everything that they can at you to make sure. And, you know, obviously they want the Jewish people to be destroyed, but we're not the only target here. You're also the target. Even if you're a non-Jewish person out there, you are very much the target. And it makes me sad sometimes, because even though I know that Israel is facing such a whopping aggression of every kind, at least we know. You know what I mean? At least we know, at least we get it. We've been there. We're experts at this. We're scarred up and down from it, but we know what we're doing. But you don't know what's coming at you. You don't know who you're dealing with. You don't know who these bad guys are, because you're very, very good. And so you don't recognize this bad guy, but he's coming for you. And we're trying to protect you too, you know? So when you stand with the Jewish people, you are clawing, you are holding on with your fingernails to your belief in the Bible that you've been taught, in the Holy Torah. You are holding on to your relationship with Hashem. You are holding on to the conservative values that you wanted to teach your children, and you're holding on to your own future and security. That's the truth. Anyway, this has been a little bit of like a monologue for no reason, Yishai, but I guess I was like triggered by your last guess in a good way, I guess. But your last guess really made me think, because you know, Yishai, you and I, we have been fighting for Israel since we looked much younger than this, right? But you know, I'll speak for you if it's okay. We have like a love in our heart for the people around the world who are not us, right? Who are not here, who are not us, but who have the light in their eyes and the, you know, that sparkle and that powerful burning in their heart for the God of Israel. And we don't want anything bad to happen to you. That's the truth. And while we're fighting for ourselves, we can't help but think of you, and know that this is a very important battle for you, and we're fighting for you. And I know that you are fighting for you, and that you're fighting for us too. And I think that this is a very important moment to remember that we have common, we have a need to stick together to help, you know, achieve some common goals. The Jewish people have the God of Israel. Everyone has the God of Israel, I guess, but the Jewish people can rely on the God of Israel, and we know how this story ends for us. Baruch Hashem. And in that sense, we don't really need anyone. But nonetheless, I think that it is important not to lose our friends. And I care about our friends. And I don't want to see them drop by the wayside in the daily reality or in history. And I would love to see them, you guys who are out there, I would love to see you climb up the ladder of history alongside us, with us. And this has been, thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
There you go.
Yeah.
Malkah, amen. God bless you.
Yeah.
Let's 1 second. Let's see what's this. Una Barker says, we know that Israel will prevail because Christians are praying for Israel, and God Almighty is forever faithful to his children and his people. Amen.
Yeah, amen.
All right, let's do Malkah Fleisher. Let's do a review of some of these. Let's start that again. Malkah Fleisher.
Yes.
Don't interrupt. Malkah Fleisher. Let's do a review of this week's best videos, leading videos. Let's start with this one here from Surprising the Power and Vehemence and Seriousness of Roseanne Barr. Let's check this out.
Judaism, and I look at my comments, they're like, when are you going to get over this Jew stuff?
You're
And
like-
then my numbers go down. And I'm like, this is so great that I would end up with no followers at all because I talk about God and anti-Semitism and Judaism. That's my new goal.
Where did this passion come from to proudly to defend your Jewishness? There's a lot of people that would not be doing that in your position.
Well, because they don't know what it is.
So what is
They
it?
think it's eating a bagel. It's life. Judaism is life itself. Torah is life itself. And I live in Torah and for Torah, and that's it.
How does that present itself on a day-to-day?
Praying, writing, talking, learning, talking to other students, trying to hear something new and trying to hear it said better and wondering why more aren't interested. You know, since October 7th, I think it was an awakening and people are like, something else is going on.
Roseanne, wait a minute. Is this the loudmouth, foul-mouth, overweight, angry, high-pitched voice lady that I knew? This is like a professor. She's like a Rebbetzin, a Chabad Rebbetzin and a professor in one. This is like a different Roseanne Barr. I like it. Okay, she sounds smart. She sounds connected, and she clearly has had something has moved her. After the 7th of October, she's just a different person.
Right.
I gotta get her on the show.
Yeah, I mean, she's a Jew, you know? She's a Jew in a reality in which she's not going to look away and she's not going to close her eyes. And she wants to open her eyes and she can't understand why other people don't want to open their eyes. And she has taken what used to be, she's taken all that like raw honesty that she used to use for things that were maybe a little bit more frivolous and turn them toward truth. It's the same lady. She's just using her powers for truth. And she's incredible. And I think that there's a lot of people like her, honestly. That video is spectacular. And you don't see many like that. But I think that there are a lot of Jews around the world who were shaken awake hard. And they are brave enough to keep their eyes open and keep looking around and being brave and moving forward with Torah and with Judaism and with truth. And I commend her all the way.
Absolutely. I just love the way she's like Torah. That's my life. I love that. That was great. Okay. How about this young Arab? I think it's Luai. He has what to say to us, what to say, not to us, but just to specifically to Tucker Carlson. Check this out.
Hassan, you interviewed the president of Iran.
Mr. President, thank you very much for doing this.
A leader of an Islamist regime that executes women for showing their hair, hangs gay people from cranes, and murders journalists like yourself for doing exactly what you do, asking questions. So why didn't you ask him any of these critical questions? You see, Tucker, you grill your own American politicians harder than you grill genocidal theocrats who want to nuke America and its allies. And you call yourself a patriot? You're not a patriot, and you're not a journalist either. This is not journalism, Tucker. This is anti-West propaganda clearly wrapped in foreign money. Who's paying you, Tucker? It's time to come clean.
Ouch. Luai Ahmed rips into Tucker and he just says it like the way we all think of it. Like, who's paying you? Like, what is this? What's going on? You used to be like the darling of pro-Israelism and nationalism. Now you're like anti-Trump, anti-war with Iran, anti-Israel. Like who's paying you? I love that. I think Luai is totally right about that. What do you say, Malkah?
Yeah. Tucker's full of bile, and it seems a little bit forced at this point. And I think that people are wondering what that's about.
Okay, so that's Tucker. How about a Berkeley chancellor being grilled about anti-Semitism? Check this out.
Akadi, a professor of history at Berkeley University, on the other hand, said, I could have been one of those people who broke through on the siege on October 7th. What do you think he meant by that?
I can't speak to.
I know, but
not
you're a
in-
pretty intelligent man, or at least come off as a pretty intelligent man. What do you think he meant by that?
I'm not.
Put yourself in a Jewish student's,
Look, I think I want to separate the phrase from the person. If I heard some other person.
We can't separate the phrase from the person because of this professor who works at the university in which you are in charge of. So I would like to know, because you're so educated, and you are, and you tout yourself at that, and you've earned that. What do you think the professor meant? Hello?
I believe it was a celebration of the terrorist attack on October 7th.
Right. Do you think, did you have any conversations with this professor?
I've had conversations with this professor, yes.
Yeah, and what was his response? And what were the conversations?
He's a fine scholar.
Did you like that? She's like, she's just like, this guy is speaking that he's for the mass murder of people. Did you challenge him on that? No. Okay, well then, don't be surprised that there's anti-Semitism on your campus, because you are allowing professors to talk that way, and they're unchallenged. There's just like no problem with talking the most vile hate of. It's not even vile hate. It's like that's like you can hate. You're allowed to hate in America, but you're not supposed to speak to murder of Jews, of people. That's already crossing a line. That's so-called hate speech. But that's like violence.
Okay, but it's not in America anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like the America that we remember, in which you can't talk about killing Jews, has changed. The Overton window has been moved. You can talk about that now. I remember once upon a time when people would respond to things that I posted on social media with a picture of Adolf Hitler doing like a salute, that you could report that, and that was considered hate speech. But
Right.
Today, that's not hate speech.
Right.
If you report a picture like that, like, what do you think it means when you go to a Jewish account and you post a picture like that? Like, what do you think it means? I know what it means, and they know what it means. And the social media checking people in the back rooms, they know what it means too. And it's not a violation. So
It's become acceptable.
it's a different game.
It's become acceptable. Okay, Malkah, here's a great one for you. Are you sure that you're a Zionist? We talk about this word a lot. Here's a good one for you. Check this out.
I no longer use the term Zionist or anti-Zionist when describing myself. A few years ago, I surveyed American Jews. 58% said that they were Zionist. Then I said, I'm going to give you a definition of Zionism. Zionism, I said, means the belief in a Jewish and democratic state. 71%, according to this definition, said that they were Zionist. Then I gave them a second definition. Zionism, I said, means a sense of emotional attachment to Israel. 72% said that according to this definition, they were also Zionist. But then I gave them a very different definition. This is the definition that I know Palestinians have experienced in the name of Zionism. Zionism, I said, is the privileging of Jews over non-Jews in Israel. Here, the number plummeted. Only 10% of American Jews said that according to this definition, they were Zionist. The upshot? While many Jews think they are Zionist, the vast majority of American Jews oppose an ideology that suggests oppressing another people. There's an opening here. We can support equality for everyone, Jews and Palestinians, between the river and the sea. And it might just start with leaving behind terms that cause more confusion than clarity.
Okay, now what's so funny about that? If you follow her logic, she's like, if you use this definition of Zionism as the return of the Jewish people, land of Israel, Jewish governance, do you support that? People are like, yes. And then she's like, but if you use this definition that Jews are abusing the Arabs, do you support that? They're like, no. So what they're saying is, I want the other definition, silly girl. It's not that therefore that means that they don't support that. They don't support your definition of that. They don't like your definition. They don't think that. They don't think that a tiny little Israel a tiny 1% of the Middle East, right? A tiny little protectorate reservation within the Arab Middle East needs to give total equalities to everybody else, as though Jews have equalities in the Arab lands. Of course they don't. This is meant to defend the Jewish people. It's an ethnic protectorate. It's a national state. And so, and nobody thinks that Israel's abusing the Arabs that are within it. Quite the opposite. They have more democratic rights than in other places, more freedoms and opportunities, more upward mobility. So it's like, yeah, well, let's say I use the term Zionism to mean that there's a world media, global and bank takeover, and that the Jews own everything, and there's a little cabal called the Elders of Zion. Would you support Zionism? No. No, I don't think I would. You see, so people don't like Israel. But no, that's not what that means. That's not what that means. Any comments on that, Malkah?
I think it's all she's really saying is that this is all about who controls the narrative. If the Jews are allowed to define their own definitions of the word Zionism, then Jews are like, yes, that sounds fantastic. Sign me up for that. If you use the enemy's definition of Zionism, then it's like well crafted and manipulated, and they have twisted things all around, and then people don't like it. And we're seeing that in reality, you know?
That's right. Very simple. Very good point, Malkah. And I want to reiterate a point that was going to be my rant, but you already ranted, so I'm not.
Oh, sorry, Yishai. Go ahead. Rant away.
No. I'll don't worry. I got plenty of.
Re-rant. Everyone likes double rant it.
I'm just saying like this. I'm going to keep it to a short statement, not a rant. America, if you want to continue to be a blessed power, root out the anti-Semites within you, the anti-Zionists within you, because they will bring your country down. They will take away your blessings. They will unravel your children's connection to the Bible and to God. They will bring hedonism, materialism, progressivism, anti-Semitism into your children's lives. I have seen it. I have seen it. I've seen it so powerfully that young people's minds are turned and they become the enemies of America, the enemies of the Bible, the enemies of Israel, the enemies of God, and frankly, the enemies of themselves. They just don't see it. They become so self-destructive. And so for the sake of your society, root this stuff out. It's all related. Progressivism, jihadism, anti-Semitism. It's self-destructive, and fight it with everything you have, or else they'll bring your whole country down, and they'll bring themselves down unbeknownst to themselves. Malkah Fleisher, I want to thank you so much for being with us on this beautiful Yom Rishon Sunday. I want to also, before we go on, I want to thank, how do you pronounce this? Orion Myra, who gifted 5 Yishai Fleisher memberships. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much.
Beautiful, beautiful. That's awesome. And D. Adams, who writes, it saddens my heart to see evil rise against. It's kind of purely out of ignorance, praying for the Druze, Christians, Israel, and our enemies, and for a good spell checker. God bless you, D. Adams. Thank you very much for your support and your super chat. I want to bless everybody out there. Malkah, thank you so much for being with us.
Don't forget Rich. Rich is out there too.
That's right. There's Rich. What are you referring to?
Rich DeBusk says, I can't physically be there. There he is.
There he is. But thankful to have you as my proxy. Zionist in mind. I'm sending you blessings, Rich. I'm sending you blessings to be rich spiritually, to be rich with God's presence in your life, and to see with your own fleshly eyes the rebirth and the strengthening of the land of Israel and the Jewish people's return, the ingathering to the land of Israel. Malkah Fleisher, God bless you. Thank you so much for being with me.
All the best, Yishai. See you next week.
Or
after the show.
Or right after the show. That's right. All right, folks. Yishai Fleisher here. I want to thank you so much. I also want to thank my producer, Yo, for helping out and being back here and monitoring all the chats out there. And I want to also thank Nathaniel for cutting a lot of our videos this week and taking care of the business. And in short, really thank Hashem, God, for helping us broadcast from the land of Israel to wherever you are. Lots of love, lots of blessings from the land of blessings. Thank you so much. Looking forward to being with you again here soon at Yishai Fleisher TV. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, become a member, and check out our store. There's lots of ways to connect and to connect to the God of Israel and the land of Israel. God bless you wherever you are, and shalom.